Do-hyun Park stared out the large window of Stellar Harmony Station. Earth looked like a beautiful blue marble from up here. He adjusted his plain black tie and smoothed down his simple gray suit. The reflection in the window showed a man of average height with neat black hair and kind eyes. At 30 years old, he was the youngest diplomat on the station, but today he felt much older. "Diplomat Park, please report to meeting room 7. The station's AI announced in a gentle voice. "Your new partner has arrived." Do-hyun took a deep breath. Everyone on the station had been talking about this meeting for weeks. The famous alien hunter, Hae-jin, was coming to work with him. She had caught more space pirates and dangerous criminals than anyone else in 3 galaxies. He walked through the clean white corridors of the station. Other staff members gave him worried looks as he passed. His friend Jae-won had told him yesterday, "Be careful around her. They say she once tracked a criminal through an asteroid field for 6 months just to catch him." The door to meeting room 7 slid open with a soft hiss. Do-hyun stepped inside and froze. He had expected someone tall and scary-looking. Instead, a woman about his height stood by the window, looking at Earth. She had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the starlight. Her white hair was tied back in a simple braid. She wore a plain black uniform, with no weapons that he could see. She turned to face him, and Do-hyun noticed her eyes. They were completely silver, like mirrors, but somehow they looked kind. "You must be Diplomat Park," she said in perfect Earth standard. Her voice was softer than he expected. "I am Hae-jin. Thank you for agreeing to help me with this project." Do-hyun bowed slightly, following Earth diplomatic custom. "Welcome to Stellar Harmony Station. Please, call me Do-hyun." Hae-jin smiled, showing teeth that were just a little sharper than human teeth. "Then you must call me Ha-jin. Shall we get started?" They sat down at the meeting table. Do-hyun pulled out his data pad, trying to keep his hand steady. "I understand you need help translating some old space pirate codes." Ha-jin nodded. She waved her hand, and a hologram appeared above the table. Strange symbols floated in the air. "These messages keep appearing before major criminal activities. We think they're using an old Earth language as a base, mixing it with alien languages. Since you're one of the best xenolinguists in Earth's diplomatic corps, I'll do my best to help," Do-hyun said. He studied the symbols. Some looked familiar. "This part here, it reminds me of ancient Korean mixed with something else." "That's exactly why I asked for you," Ha-jin said. She leaned forward, her silver eyes bright with interest. "Your specialty in East Asian languages could be the key to cracking this code." They worked together for several hours. Do-hyun found himself relaxing as they talked about languages and cultures. Ha-jin knew surprising things about Earth history. She asked thoughtful questions about how languages evolved. "How did you learn so much about Earth?" he asked during a break. Ha-jin looked down at her hands. "I find your species fascinating. Most races that reach the stars focus only on technology. But humans, you keep your old stories, your languages, your traditions. You bring your whole history with you into space. Is that unusual?" "Very." She looked back at Earth through the window. Most species think they need to leave their past behind to move forward. They don't understand that the past can make you stronger. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors outside. Do-hyun jumped up, but Ha-jin stayed calm. "Security alert in Docking Bay 3. The station AI announced. Unauthorized ship attempting to dock." The door slid open. Yoon-suk, the station's security chief, rushed in. She was a tall woman with short black hair and a stern face. Her uniform had the red stripes of station security. "Diplomat Park, Hunter Ha-jin," she said quickly. "We need your help. The ship is broadcasting messages in a code similar to what you're studying." Do-hyun looked at the new message on Yoon-suk's datapad. The symbols were dancing across the screen. His eyes widened as he recognized patterns they had just been discussing. "It's a threat," he said, translating quickly. "They're demanding access to the station's communication systems. Hajin stood up smoothly. They're not here for your communications. That's just what they want you to think. Her voice had changed, becoming harder. Now, Do-hyun could believe the stories about her hunting criminals across galaxies. What do you mean? Yoon-suk asked. This group has been attacking stations across 3 sectors, Hajin explained. They pretend they want one thing, but they're really after something else. While security focuses on protecting the communication systems, they'll try to break in somewhere else. Do-hyun finished. He looked at the code again. Wait, there's a pattern here we didn't see before. These symbols keep repeating, but slightly different each time, like they're counting down. Hae-jin moved to look over his shoulder. She was close enough that he could smell something like flowers and starlight. You're right. It's not just a message, it's a timer. They're coordinating with someone already on the station. Yoon-suk cursed softly. We need to find their inside person before the countdown ends. But we have over 2,000 people on this station. I might be able to help with that too, Do-hyun said slowly. See this part of the code? It's using an old Korean counting system, but with alien numbers mixed in. If we track the pattern, his fingers flew over the data pad. They're not just counting down, they're giving coordinates. Section 12, Level 5. The science labs, Yoon-suk said sharply. What's in Section 12? The new quantum communication prototype. Hajin answered. That's their real target. She turned to Do-hyun, her silver eyes intense. You're better at this than I expected, Diplomat Park. Do-hyun felt his face get warm. I just pay attention to details. Details catch criminals, she said with a small smile. Then she turned to Yoon-suk. We don't have much time. I suggest we. The lights in the room suddenly went out. Emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow. Through the window, Do-hyun could see other sections of the station going dark. They're starting early, Hajin said calmly. Diplomat Park, would you like to help catch some space pirates? Do-hyun looked at her. In the red emergency lights, her blue skin looked purple, and her silver eyes glowed. She wasn't what he had expected at all. He thought about all the diplomatic training he had received, all the lessons about staying safe and letting security handle dangerous situations. Then he thought about how her eyes had lit up when they talked about languages, how she respected Earth's history, how she saw things others missed. He straightened his tie. Yes, he said. I would like that very much. Hae-jin's smile showed all her sharp teeth. Excellent. Security Chief Yoon-suk, please lock down all exits from Section 12. Diplomat Park, and I will handle the translation of any new messages. And she pulled something small and silver from her sleeve. It expanded into a weapon Do-hyun had never seen before. We'll also handle anyone we meet along the way. As they hurried through the darkened corridors, Do-hyun realized this was not how he had expected his day to go. He was supposed to be translating old codes with the famous alien hunter. Instead, he was heading toward danger with her. And somehow, he felt more excited than scared. He glanced at Hae-jin as they ran. She moved like flowing water, smooth and graceful. But her silver eyes were scanning everything, missing nothing. She caught him looking and winked. Don't worry, Do-hyun, she said. This is just a normal day for me. Though I must say, she smiled that sharp-toothed smile again. It's much more interesting with you here. The station's emergency lights flashed red around them as they ran deeper into the station, toward whatever waited in the science labs. Do-hyun straightened his tie one more time and smiled back at her. Normal day or not, he had a feeling his life was about to change in ways he never could have predicted. Behind them, Earth continued its slow spin in space, watching over its children as they raced into adventure among the stars. The emergency lights painted red stripes across Do-hyun's face as he ran beside Hae-jin through the darkened corridors of Stellar Harmony Station. His heart was beating fast, but his mind stayed clear. Years of diplomatic training had taught him to think straight under pressure. Stop, Ha-Jin whispered suddenly. She put her arm out to hold Do-hyun back. Her silver eyes narrowed as she looked ahead. Someone's there. Do-hyun listened carefully. At first, he heard nothing over the soft hum of the station's systems. Then he caught it, the quiet sound of footsteps trying to be silent. Ha-Jin pulled him gently into a side corridor. In the dim light, her blue skin looked almost purple. She pressed something into his hand, a small silver disc. "Emergency shield," she explained softly. "Press the center if there's danger." "Thank you," Do-hyun whispered back. "But how did you hear those footsteps?" "They're so quiet." Ha-Jin's sharp teeth showed in a quick smile. "My people evolved as hunters. We can hear a leaf fall in a storm." She looked at him with curious silver eyes. "You're very calm for someone in their first space crisis." Diplomatic training includes crisis management, though usually it's about angry ambassadors, not space pirates. Angry ambassadors can be more dangerous than pirates, sometimes, Ha-Jin said with a quiet laugh. The footsteps were getting closer. Do-hyun could now hear at least 3 different sets. He thought about the station layout he had memorized during his first week here. "The maintenance tunnel," he whispered to Ha-Jin. 2 meters behind us. It connects to Section 12 from below." Ha-Jin's silver eyes widened slightly. "You know the station's layout that well. I like to be prepared." "So do I." She touched her wrist computer, sending a quick message to Security Chief Yoon-suk about their plan. "Let's go." They slipped into the maintenance tunnel. It was narrow, with pipes and cables running along the walls. They had to walk single file, Ha-Jin leading the way. Her white hair glowed faintly in the darkness. "Tell me about diplomatic training," she said softly as they walked. "How does one learn to handle angry ambassadors?" Do-hyun smiled in the dark. Even in a crisis, she was curious about other cultures. "We study psychology, body language, and cultural customs. But mostly we learn to listen. Really listen, not just wait for our turn to talk." "That's not so different from hunting," Ha-Jin said. "To catch someone, you must understand them. Know how they think, how they move, what they want." They reached a junction in the tunnel. Ahead, they could hear voices arguing in a mix of languages. Do-hyun concentrated, picking out words he knew. "They're confused," he whispered to Ha-Jin. "Their inside person was supposed to meet them, but hasn't shown up." "Good. Yoon-suk must have caught them." Ha-Jin checked her wrist computer. She did. The insider was a maintenance worker. "They're in custody." "So the pirates don't know their plan is already failing." "Exactly." Ha-Jin's smile was predatory now. "Would you like to help me take advantage of their confusion?" Do-hyun thought about all his training about staying safe, about letting security handle dangerous situations. Then he thought about how smoothly he and Ha-Jin worked together, how they understood each other without many words. "What's your plan?" Ha-Jin explained quickly. Do-hyun listened, adding suggestions based on his knowledge of the station layout. When she finished, they looked at each other in the dim tunnel and smiled. "Ready?" she asked. Do-hyun straightened his tie. "Ready." They split up. Do-hyun went left, moving as quietly as he could. He reached the access panel he needed and waited. Through the thin wall, he could hear the pirates more clearly now. "Where is Kaz?" One voice demanded. "We can't get into the lab without their access codes." "Try calling again," another voice said. "All signals are blocked," a third voice growled. "This whole section is locked down." That was Do-hyun's cue. He pressed his data pad against the access panel and started broadcasting the message he and Ha-Jin had prepared. It used the pirates' own code, but with a crucial difference. New symbols floated through the air in the pirate section. Do-hyun heard them fall silent as they read the message. It seemed to come from their missing inside person, telling them to go to a different lab section. Finally, one pirate said, "Let's go." Do-hyun heard them moving away. He waited 30 seconds, then sent the second part of the message. Through the wall, He heard running footsteps and surprised shouts. Hajin had been waiting in their new location. The sounds of a brief fight reached Do Hyun's ears. He pressed the access panel again, and it slid open. The scene in the corridor made him smile. 3 pirates lay on the ground, groaning. Hajin stood over them, not even breathing hard. Her silver eyes met his and crinkled with pleasure. "Nice work with the messages," she said. "You even got the dialect right. They didn't suspect a thing." "Nice work with the everything else," Do Hyun replied, looking at the unconscious pirates. Hajin laughed. "This is what I do. But I couldn't have done it so smoothly without you." She touched her wrist computer. "Security team is on the way. Want to help me tie them up?" As they secured the pirates, Do Hyun noticed how gracefully Hajin moved, how careful she was not to hurt the unconscious criminals more than necessary. She was both gentler and more dangerous than her reputation suggested. "You're not what I expected," he said without thinking. Hajin looked up, her silver eyes curious. "What did you expect?" "Someone scarier. All the stories about you focus on the hunting, the fighting. No one mentioned you'd be interested in languages and culture, or that you'd be." He stopped, realizing what he was about to say. "That I'd be what?" Her voice was soft. "Kind," he finished quietly. The security team arrived before Hajin could respond. The next hour was busy with reports and questions. The station's lights came back on. The pirates were taken to the brig. Do Hyun answered Yoon Suk's questions about the coded messages. Finally, things calmed down. Do Hyun found himself back in meeting room 7 with Hajin. Earth spun slowly outside the window, peaceful and blue. "Thank you for your help today," Hajin said. She stood close to him by the window. Most people wouldn't have been so quick to assist a stranger, especially in a dangerous situation. "You're not exactly a stranger. Everyone knows about you." "They know about the hunter," she said, "the one who chases criminals across galaxies. Not many people look past that to see me." Do Hyun turned to face her. In the normal lighting, her blue skin shimmered slightly, like sunlight on water. Her silver eyes were softer than before. "I'd like to," he said. "Look past that, I mean. If you're willing to let me." Hajin smiled, and this time her sharp teeth didn't look frightening at all. "I'd like that too." She looked out at Earth again. "I'll be on the station for several weeks, working on this pirate code case. Perhaps you could tell me more about Earth's cultures. In return, I could share stories about the worlds I've seen." "I'd enjoy that very much," Do Hyun said. He found himself smiling too. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched Earth spin. Do Hyun thought about how this day had started. Him nervous about meeting the famous alien hunter. Now here he was, standing beside her after helping catch space pirates, making plans to share stories and cultures. "Do Hyun," Hajin said suddenly, "would you like to have dinner with me? The station's cafeteria serves some Earth foods I've been curious to try." "Yes," he answered, maybe a little too quickly. But Hajin's pleased smile made his embarrassment fade. "I know a good corner table with a view of the stars." As they walked together toward the cafeteria, Do Hyun realized something had changed. The famous alien hunter was becoming just Hajin to him, fascinating, complex, and full of surprises. He straightened his tie and smiled. Sometimes the best diplomatic relations started with a simple dinner and willing hearts. 2 weeks had passed since the space pirate incident. Do Hyun sat in his office, looking at his datapad but not really seeing it. He was thinking about dinner with Hajin last night. They had shared a meal of Korean bibimbap, which she had loved. Her silver eyes had lit up at the mix of colors and flavors. His office door chimed. "Come in," he called. Jae-won walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. His friend's dark eyes twinkled with amusement. "You're thinking about her again, aren't you?" Do Hyun accepted the coffee with a small smile. "Is it that obvious? You get this look on your face." Jae-won sat down across from him. Like you're seeing stars instead of station reports. The whole station is talking about you too, you know. What are they saying? That the quiet diplomat and the galaxy's most famous hunter make an interesting pair. Jae-won sipped his coffee. Security Chief Yoon-suk says you two work together like you've known each other for years. Before Do-hyun could respond, his datapad lit up with an urgent message. His eyes widened as he read it. What is it? Jae-won asked. The pirate code. Hajin. And I finally cracked it completely. Do-hyun stood up quickly. I need to find her. This is worse than we thought. He found Hajin in their usual meeting room. She was already studying the decoded messages, her white hair glowing in the starlight from the window. You saw it too? She asked without looking up. Yes. They're not just random attacks. All these station raids are connected. Hajin nodded. They're building something. Something big. She turned to face him, her blue skin shimmering with concern. The quantum communication device they tried to steal. It's just one piece of a larger machine. But what kind of machine? Do-hyun asked. Based on these messages, Hajin brought up a hologram showing the decoded text. They're building a device that can control all space station systems at once. Imagine it. They could shut down life support on hundreds of stations at the same time. Do-hyun felt cold. They could hold entire sectors hostage. Exactly. Hajin's sharp teeth showed in a grim smile. But thanks to your work with the language patterns, we know where they're meeting next. A station in the Proxima system. When? Tomorrow. She looked at him carefully. I need to go there. Try to stop them. Do-hyun straightened his tie. I'm coming with you. It will be dangerous. More dangerous than our first meeting. He smiled at her. Besides, you might need someone who understands their codes. Hajin's silver eyes softened. I've gotten used to having you around. Do-hyun Park. You see things others miss. They spent the next hour planning with Security Chief Yoon-suk. Do-hyun would go as a diplomatic representative, officially there to discuss station security measures. Hajin would pose as his security escort. That evening, as they prepared to leave, Do-hyun stopped by the station's garden level. He often came here to think. The artificial sky was set to sunset, painting everything in soft orange light. I thought I'd find you here. Hajin's voice came from behind him. He turned to see her walking towards him. She had changed into her hunting gear, a black suit that seemed to absorb light, but she had kept her hair in the Earth-style braid he had shown her how to do. I like watching the artificial sunset, he said. It reminds me of home. Hajin stood beside him, looking up at the false sky. Tell me about your home. I grew up in a small city by the sea, Do-hyun said. My parents were teachers. Every evening, we would walk by the ocean and watch the sunset. They taught me that understanding others is the first step to peace. They sound wise. Hajin's voice was soft. My people don't have families like humans do. We are raised by the whole community. Maybe that's why I find your ways so fascinating. Do-hyun looked at her profile in the sunset light. What made you become a hunter? I was always good at finding things. And people. She smiled slightly. But I never enjoyed the violence that other hunters seemed to love. I preferred to outsmart my targets rather than fight them. Like you did with the pirates here. Yes, but that was different. She turned to face him. That was the first time I worked with someone who thought the same way, who saw that understanding your target is more powerful than any weapon. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. The artificial sun painted golden streaks in Hajin's white hair. Do-hyun, she said suddenly, why did you really decide to come with me tomorrow? He thought about it carefully. Because we make a good team. Because I want to help stop these pirates. He paused, then added softly, and because I care what happens to you. Hajin's silver eyes seemed to glow in the fading light. She reached out and straightened his tie, her fingers gentle. I care what happens to you too, more than I expected to. The moment was broken by Do-hyun's data pad chiming. It was Security Chief Yoon-suk, confirming their departure time for tomorrow. "We should rest," Ha-jin said. "Tomorrow will be challenging." "Stay safe tomorrow," Do-hyun said. "Both of us." "We will." She smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "After all, I have a dinner date to keep when we return. You promised to teach me about Earth desserts." As they walked to their separate quarters, Do-hyun thought about how much had changed in 2 weeks. He had gone from being nervous about meeting the famous hunter to planning an undercover mission with her, from formal diplomatic meetings to sharing meals and sunset talks. His mother had always told him that the heart knows no boundaries, not of space, time, or species. Looking at the stars through the station's windows, Do-hyun wondered if she had somehow known he would end up here, falling for someone who had crossed galaxies to find him. In his quarters, he packed his diplomatic bags carefully. Besides his formal clothes, he included the small silver shield disc Ha-jin had given him during their first adventure. He hoped he wouldn't need it tomorrow, but having it made him feel connected to her. As he lay in bed, Do-hyun thought about Ha-jin's silver eyes, her curious questions about Earth, her gentle touch when she straightened his tie. Tomorrow they would face danger together again. But somehow he wasn't afraid. With Ha-jin beside him, he felt ready for whatever the galaxies might bring. Outside his window, Earth continued its eternal dance among the stars, while its sun prepared to defend not just his home, but all the homes of all the species who lived among those distant lights. The Proxima station hung like a silver wheel against the red light of its star. Do-hyun stood at the viewport of Ha-jin's small ship, adjusting his diplomatic uniform. They had been traveling for 6 hours, enough time for him to learn that space travel was very different from living on a station. "Nervous?" Ha-jin asked, coming to stand beside him. In her formal security uniform, she looked different from both the famous hunter and the curious friend he had come to know. "A little," Do-hyun admitted, "but not about the danger. I'm more worried about making a mistake with the codes." Ha-jin touched his arm gently. "You won't. You understand these pirates better than anyone. That's why we're here." The station's docking control contacted them, and Do-hyun switched smoothly into his diplomatic role. He spoke clearly about his mission to discuss station security, letting none of his nerves show in his voice. As they walked through the station's corridors, Do-hyun noticed small differences from stellar harmony. The lights were dimmer, the air felt thicker, and the people seemed more nervous. "They're here," Ha-jin whispered as they passed a group of rough-looking crew members. "3 of the pirates we caught on our station. They had surgery to change their faces, but I never forget a walk pattern." They reached their assigned quarters without incident. As soon as the door closed, both of them pulled out scanning devices to check for listening devices. "Clear," Ha-jin said. "Now we wait for their meeting." Do-hyun sat down at the small desk and opened his datapad. According to the decoded messages, they're meeting in Cargo Bay 7 in 4 hours. "Good. That gives us time to." Ha-jin stopped suddenly, her silver eyes narrowing. "Do you hear that?" Do-hyun listened carefully. A faint peeping sound came from somewhere in the walls. His eyes met Ha-jin's. "They're scanning for electronics," she said quietly. "They must be more careful after what happened on our station." The beeping got louder. Then all their devices went dark at once. "They blocked all signals," Do-hyun said, keeping his voice calm. "We're cut off from warning anyone." Ha-jin smiled her sharp-toothed smile. "They think technology is everything, but they forget the oldest methods." She pulled something from her boot, a small metal tube. "Liquid message capsules. The station's water recycling system connects all sections." Do-hyun smiled back, understanding her plan. He quickly wrote a warning message on the thin paper she gave him. His diplomatic handwriting was clear and small. They sent the message through a water pipe. Now they could only hope it would reach the station's security team in time. "The meeting will start early," Ha-jin said. "They won't wait now that they know someone is watching." "Then we go now," Do-hyun said. straightening his tie. They moved carefully through the station's service corridors, avoiding the main paths. Do-hyun was grateful for all the time he had spent memorizing station layouts. Even though this station was different from Stellar Harmony, the basic design was similar. They heard voices ahead, many voices, speaking in the coded language Do-hyun had learned to understand. "They're activating something," he whispered to Ha-jin, translating the words. "A device that will." "Oh no. What is it?" "They're not just planning to control station systems. They're going to overload them. Create explosions that will look like accidents." Ha-jin's face hardened. "How many stations?" "Hundreds. All at once." Do-hyun felt sick. Millions of people would die. "Not if we stop them first." Ha-jin pulled out her hunting weapon. "Ready?" Do-hyun took a deep breath. "Wait, I have an idea." He quickly explained his plan. Ha-jin's silver eyes widened, then she smiled. "You continue to surprise me, Do-hyun Park." They split up. Do-hyun moved to the cargo bay's upper level while Ha-jin circled around below. Through the grating, he could see about 20 pirates gathered around a large device. It was ugly and clearly built from stolen parts. Do-hyun took out his datapad. It couldn't send messages, but it could still create them. He typed quickly, using the pirate's own code. Then he connected the pad to the cargo bay's local speaker system. The message began to play, symbols floating in the air above the pirates. They looked up in surprise. "Security breach." The message said in their code. "Station authorities approaching all exits. Emergency scatter protocol activated." The pirates panicked, just as Do-hyun had predicted. They started running in different directions, leaving their device unguarded. In the confusion, Ha-jin moved like shadow and water, placing small devices on their weapon. "Stop," one pirate shouted. "It's a trick." But it was too late. Ha-jin's devices activated, sending electrical pulses through the weapon. It sparked and died, its stolen parts falling apart. The pirates turned to run, only to find station security forces at every exit. Do-hyun's water pipe message had worked. In the chaos that followed, Do-hyun climbed down to stand beside Ha-jin. She was looking at him with an expression he had never seen before. "What?" he asked. "You stopped them without a single punch thrown," she said softly. "In all my years of hunting, I've never seen anything like it. I just thought like they would think. You taught me that." The station security teams were arresting the pirates. The danger was over. But Do-hyun barely noticed. He was looking at Ha-jin, at how her silver eyes shone in the cargo bay's harsh lights. "Ha-jin," he said suddenly, "I need to tell you something." "Wait," she said. "Let me speak first." She took his hands in hers. Her blue skin seemed to glow. "My people have a tradition. When we find someone who completes us, who makes us better than we are alone, we ask them to join our hunt through the stars." Do-hyun's heart beat faster. "Are you saying?" "I am asking you to marry me, Do-hyun Park." Her voice was soft but sure. "To join your diplomatic wisdom with my hunting skills, to explore the galaxies together." Do-hyun laughed, a sound of pure joy. "I was about to ask you the same thing. I even have this." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring. "I've been carrying it for days, waiting for the right moment." Ha-jin's sharp-toothed smile was brighter than starlight. "Is that a yes?" "Yes," Do-hyun said. 1,000 times yes." He put the ring on her finger while she tied a hunter's promise band around his wrist. Around them, the station hummed with life, the crisis averted. Security teams led the pirates away. But Do-hyun and Ha-jin barely noticed. What will people say? Do-hyun wondered. A diplomat and a hunter. They'll say we're the perfect team, Ha-jin replied. Understanding and action. Words and deeds. Heart and hand. Later, as they traveled back to Stellar Harmony Station, Do-hyun looked out at the star-filled space. Ha-jin stood beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "I never expected this," he said softly. "When they told me I was working with a famous hunter, I thought it would be a simple translation job. And I never expected to find someone who would show me that understanding is stronger than any weapon." Hadjin replied, "We proved today that the best hunter is not the one with the sharpest claws, but the one with the wisest heart." The stars streamed past them as they headed home. Soon they would have to plan 2 weddings, one in the Earth tradition and one in the hunter's way. Soon they would face new adventures, new challenges, new wonders among the stars. But for now, they simply stood together, a diplomat and a hunter, proof that love knows no boundaries, not of space, species, or stars. Behind them, Earth waited to welcome them home, while ahead, the galaxies beckoned with endless possibilities. Do-hyun straightened his tie one last time and smiled. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple translation job, and sometimes the heart's truest language needs no translation at all.